All right, I'm gonna try my best to iterate what I think is game of the year this year, or at least which games should be game of the year. Which games have like that are really good, that are really, you know, decent, or which ones I think should be better, or which ones are terrible, or which ones had like this one thing that I didn't like. And there's probably some games that still haven't come out, and that I should probably, you know, address a little bit. So let's just go into it right away. Okay, so right off the bat, there's some games that I probably skipped through. There's some games that people want to talk about. If you think I've missed them, go ahead and mention them. I don't mind. If I can, then, you know, I'll try to mention them in another video, maybe. If not, that's fine. Don't worry about it. So, okay, let's start off with the games that I've played. Diablo 4. Is Diablo 4 a good game? Yeah, it's a good game. Is it a great game? No, it's not a great game. I think the Diablo 4 has some pretty good combat. I think Diablo 4 has a pretty weak story. Is it going to be game of the year? Probably not. I don't think so, and I hope it doesn't get recognized for that, because it's not that great of a game. I think it's a pretty good game to play and to spend your time playing if you've got nothing to do. But if you expect to spend any meaningful amount of your time in a game, and you want that time, if you spend any amount of time in a game and you want that time to be like rewarded back to you in some way, like you earn some kind of meaningful reward, it's not going to be in Diablo 4. It just isn't. When I've played it, it crashes, and it gives me a lot of crashes, so many crashes. So if I try to spend too much time playing the game, my meaningful reward is a crash. And sometimes it'll freeze my whole computer, so I have to restart my computer. And that's not a decent reward, that is a virus. And Diablo 4 acts like a virus. So, is it game of the year? No. Is it a good game? Yeah, but only for like 10-15 minutes at a time. Okay, let's move on. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom a good game? Yeah. Is it a great game? Yeah. Is it gonna be game of the year? I hope so. For Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, I'm gonna call it Tears of the Kingdom now, because I don't want to say the whole thing. So for Tears of the Kingdom, I really liked it. I liked the gameplay, I liked the story, I liked the characters. I always like the characters and story in a Zelda game. I always do. It's really cool. I feel like they have a storytelling pretty much knocked down already. They know how to do it well. Its gameplay is basically kind of this. It's almost the same thing as Breath of the Wild, except they've changed some things to make it more unique to this game. They've removed some abilities from Breath of the Wild, and they've either improved them or removed them completely, and they added some brand new abilities, and I think a lot of them are pretty good. Some of them are like, you know, they're okay, and some of them like are really like game-changing. And game-changing is probably the fusion ability, which allows you to fuse a bunch of objects together to make some super object, which could be like a super weapon, a super car, a super flying plane, a super rocket, you know. It's really impressive. I thought it was great. I think this game, you know, I think Tears of the Kingdom is probably going to be game of the year, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is. I'd be surprised if it isn't, and then they pick something else that I haven't even thought about. But yeah, I think Tears of the Kingdom is a pretty good game. I hope it gets, you know, game of the year, because it's really great. I hope they make it like another Zelda game that has some of the features that this one had. So let's move on. Final Fantasy 16. I've played Final Fantasy 16. Is it a good game? Yeah. Is it a great game? I think so. Is it going to be game of the year? Honestly, I don't know, but I hope it gets recognized. If between Tears of the Kingdom and Final Fantasy 16, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised, or I wouldn't be that mad if Final Fantasy 16 got game of the year, because I did like it a lot. I really like the story. I like the characters. I like the combat. I liked it a lot, and I hope they make DLC, because there's something toward the ending. There's a specific thing that happened in the ending, and I hope they add DLC that might change that. You know, because I was very invested in the characters, and I hope they change something about that ending. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I really like the game, and I hope they again make DLC for it. Let me see. Let's move on to Baldur's Gate 3. This is probably going to be the most hated opinion of mine, but I played Baldur's Gate 3 for 30 minutes and I didn't like it. I'm sure you're probably wondering, like, well, how could you not like Baldur's Gate 3? It's game of the year. It's such a great game. Oh my god. I know. This is the hardest part of making this, was how to properly word this without, you know, effectively burning myself on fire. So I'm gonna try to get into it. Is Baldur's Gate 3 a good game? I don't think so. Is Baldur's Gate 3 a great game? I don't think so. Why do I not think so? Or, well, I'm sorry, is Baldur's Gate 3 gonna be Game of the Year? I hope not. No. Why do I think these things? Okay, let me just, little backstory. I've played Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. I love the story and the characters in Mass Effect 1, 2, 3. I love the choices. I've played Fallout New Vegas. I love the story in Fallout New Vegas. I love the choices in Fallout New Vegas. I've played Baldur's Gate 3. I feel like Baldur's Gate 3 has a lot things similar to Fallout New Vegas and Mass Effect when it comes to the story. My buddy has been playing Baldur's Gate 3 and he says he really likes the story. I'd agreed with that. I would definitely agree that Baldur's Gate 3 has a pretty good story. It's pretty great. The fact that you can interact with the characters in the way that you can is pretty damn great. I like that. I really do like that about the game. Now, why do I not like the game? Or I mean, why do I not think it's a great game or a good game? I don't like the combat. I sure as hell and shit do not like the combat. The combat is a very giant negative for me. It's a very giant negative for my buddy who's playing the game. Okay, he thinks the combat's shit too. We both hold this opinion. We both think it's shit. Okay, now why is that make the game terrible? No, it doesn't. It's probably it's a really good game. I would almost agree with the reviews that people have given the game, that it's like a 90, 92 or 93. My opinion would be that the game should be like a 79 or a 78 maybe, because I don't think that the combat is that negative for me. Like if it didn't have the combat, I'd probably say the game is like a 96, 97 and shit. But that combat is just really terrible for me. Why do I not like the combat? What's wrong with it? Everything is wrong with it. I don't like the combat. You move your character from one part of the combat zone to the next part of the combat. So basically, you're moving your character as close as you can to the enemy, and then you attack them. Now you could attack him from range, you could attack him from like really close, but like at a certain point he runs out of energy, and then he has to end his turn, and then it's the next turn of the next character, and then the next turn of the I don't like that a lot. I've played turn-based games, and those turn-based games are Persona 5, Dragon Quest 11, and Pokemon games in general. There's probably some other games that I'm not thinking about that are turn-based that I've played, but I just can't think of them right now. Those are like the three that I could think of right now. But I've played turn-based games before, and I like those turn-based games. This particular one I do not like. I don't know why, but I just don't like it. Now, does it deserve to be Game of the Year? No, because I don't like the combat. Like the same thing goes with Diablo 4. I like the combat in Diablo 4, but the story is boring as shit. Like, what do I care if Lilith and Anarius or whatever the fuck then shit they were, whatever problem. I don't even know what happened to the story, man. I just didn't give a shit. I preferred just the combat. I preferred the gameplay. This one, I like the story, but I just don't like the gameplay or the combat, you know? That's why they're not that's why Diablo 4 is not Game of the Year, because the story's forgettable and who gives a shit. And this is why this one isn't Game of the Year, because I like the story and I really wanted to get into it, but I don't like the combat, so I don't give a shit. It needs to be both. You can't just have one without the other. You could argue that's like, oh, the combat's great, you don't know it, you didn't figure it out. Well then, you know, that's on me then. I guess I'm not smart enough to figure out the combat. And if I'm not smart enough to figure out the combat, how many other people are not smart enough to figure out the combat? You think they're gonna give the game a chance? You think it's gonna get a fair shake? This is only a good game for PC players. If you release it to consoles, to a giant market, which is consoles. The consoles are a pretty giant market. You sure as shit believe they're gonna say this isn't Game of the Year. They're gonna give a very different opinion to a lot of these good reviews for the article, for all these great reviews this game has been getting. And that's enough. That's my opinion. If you disagree, you could go ahead and say why you disagree, and if you have some very valid points, I would take them into consideration. And honestly, I really do want to try the game again. I do, because I do want to try out that story. There's a mod that my buddy's using for his game where he basically eliminates the entire turn-based combat, so that he has an infinite turn, so he never has to, like, you know, he never has to not stop attacking. So basically just removes the gameplay entirely. And I was like, I'm willing to do that, but that's like a, you know, that basically just changes the game completely. And you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna do that. So anyway, let's move on from Baldur, from that. Hopefully that's like the worst opinion I have today, but let's move on. For the next games that are coming out, I can only next games that might be decent and all that, or that might be decent enough to be a game of the year, probably like Spider-Man 2 and Starfield. I'm gonna start off with Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man was a pretty good game. I liked it. I didn't play Spider-Man Miles Morales. For this one, I probably won't get it. I don't feel excited for it, to be honest. Is it gonna be good enough to be game of the year? I don't think so. I was excited for Final Fantasy 16. So I bought that one, but I'm not that excited for this one, so I don't think so, to be honest. It might be decent though. It might, maybe my mind will change when I see more gameplay and more of the story. We'll see, but at this moment I don't think so. Starfield, my expectations for Starfield are a little bit low right now. I would say that Starfield probably has an upward hill to run on to be considered a decent game, because Fallout games haven't really been good since I think New Vegas, and New Vegas wasn't really developed by Bethesda anyway. It was Fallout New Vegas was developed by Obsidian, and Obsidian doesn't make Fallout games at all. They just, you know, they made this one, and this one was really great, and I think Fallout New Vegas is probably the best Fallout game, and it wasn't even developed by Bethesda. Fallout 3 is a pretty good one, but it's not that great. Fallout 4 was a pretty good one, but it's not that great compared to, again, New Vegas. New Vegas is the best one. So what do I think about Starfield? Is it gonna be that good? I hope it's a good game. My expectations are pretty low. Is it gonna be game of the year? Probably not. That's sad to say, but I mean, that's the world we live in. Yeah, those are my opinions on which ones are probably gonna be game of the year. Overall, which game should be game of the year? I still think Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Final Fantasy 16 should probably be the only ones, in my opinion, to be considered for game of the year. Anything else I don't care about. Anything else I don't think deserves it. Anything else is a waste of time. Anyway, thanks for watching. Go ahead and give me your opinion, why you think I'm wrong, why you think I'm right, which games you think I should consider more, which games you think that I haven't mentioned should be considered.